6:47 PM.
5:47.
Oh, 5:47, I'm sorry. Clerk, will you please call the roll of council?
Mayor Coleman, Councilmember Kunzo,
Here.
Councilmember Algae.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ayala,
Here.
Councilmember Byrd,
Here.
Councilmember Martinez, Councilmember Morris,
Here.
Councilmember Russell,
Here.
Councilmember Salazar. Quorum is present, Your Honor.
Thank you. Item 3A is an executive session. Before I ask for a motion on the executive session, can I get an overview of the executive session?
Yes, you can. Tonight we have with us Joe Donahue, the Executive Director of E470, and Tamara Seaver, their legal counsel. And they have requested to meet with City Council in executive session to discuss negotiations on the 8th Amendment to their tolling, E470's tolling services agreement. And so we will have that discussion in executive session if council so please.
Are there any questions from the council? All right, will you please state what the motion would be?
The motion is for an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-64024B and 4E with legal counsel and the executive director of E470 for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions and instructing negotiators on matters that may be subject to negotiations regarding the 8th Amendment to the tolling services agreement with High Performance Transportation Enterprise doing business as Colorado Transportation Investment Office and associated matters.
All right, can I get a motion as stated?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. The motion was passed. We are now in executive session at 48 or 40, yeah.
Great meeting you once
Thank
again.
you.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing you guys more here.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
And these,
I have a card, so.
this is nothing proprietary in here, so you can keep.
Okay.
No reason to.
Thank you.
So I might take some time as we've got staff rotating back in here, to just get some feedback from the council on one item. So on your council agenda on March 31st, we do have a number of appointments that you have already authorized. Since the last time you met, the Thornton Active Adults Board has reviewed has been able to review candidates and do interviews. So we do have recommendations from the tab that could be considered on March 31st. They initially did have 3 vacancies and there were 4 applicants. Ultimately, they did have a couple of people withdraw from consideration. And so the tab is recommending the 2 remaining applicants, Christopher Dida and Sherry Goldstein, to be appointed. Christopher is from Ward 3 and Sherry is from Ward 2. And so if those appointments were made, you would have 3 board members from Ward 1, 2 from 2, 2 from 3, and 3 from 4. And then we would continue to advertise for that last vacancy.
Thank you.
Okay. And with this, we're going to transition really quickly. Rob Kolstad will introduce, and we do have Peggy, I think, virtually.
Yes.
I do also need to ask the council about the meeting tonight and the action items and which ones they would like to read. Can I do that quickly or?
Sure.
Fine. Okay, so I have see here. Action item 14A is for the
I'll do it.
a resolution declaring for the drought response. Drew, you said you would do it, or?
I'll help you out.
And then we have there's another one. 14B is a resolution approving the 2026 federal legislative agenda for the city of Thornton. I think that's all I have. Yep, that's it. Everything else I got covered. All right, we're good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Peggy, can you hear us?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
I can. Just a clicker. Next slide. Oh, thank you. Oh, where's the clicker? We're gonna get through this as quick as we can. We wanted tonight to provide just a real quick update on a couple of the bills that you took positions on. We'll actually try to move through that really quickly, noting the time, and then move on to the highlighted bills. Council had requested additional information on 7 bills. The first 3 are public safety related, so the chief and Deputy Attorney Stevens are gonna help walk us through that. So again, we'll try to move through this really with pace to give you enough time to get ready for the meeting. Peggy, you want to cover this one real quick?
Yeah, real quick. Thank you, Mayor, council members. Great to be with you tonight. Couple updates on those bills that we have taken positions on. House Bill 1001 went through the Senate committee. It is scheduled to be on second reading tomorrow. There have been significant changes to the bill. We expect several more amendments tomorrow, so that bill is moving in the right direction, though still obviously a local control issue. Senate Bill 24, this was the drone bill that was killed in committee. So that one is off of our list. And with that, I know you guys are tight on time, so I'm going to move right into the bills that we want to talk about today. Please interrupt me at any time if you all have questions, but quick update, Senate Bill 70, this was the bill that we talked about. We have an amend position on this bill. It prohibits government entities from accessing databases containing historic location information. For instance, data that would reveal a vehicle's location more than 72 hours prior without a warrant, consent, or narrow exceptions. It restricts sharing of that information with third parties and law enforcement in other states. Law enforcement have expressed concerns about the bill and the warrant requirements, as well as the sharing across state lines. The bill sponsor has indicated she isn't interested in removing the warrant requirement, but she does understand there's a $2 million fiscal note, which may actually increase by the governor's office. It would take me, Mayor, it would take me the rest of the meeting to go through all of the opponents and supporters on the bill, but just some highlights I'll give you on it. I know that's important for you. CML, DAs, Fire Chief, Fraternal Order of Police, State Patrol, Chiefs, Aspen, Pueblo, Arvada, Longmont, Castle Rock, Woodland Park, Brighton, Greeley, Lone Tree, are all opposed to it, as are a number of counties. Also, the Protective Order of Police, Emergency Medical Services. In support of the bill is ACLU, Instituted Justice, New Era, Common Cause, Color Action Fund, Rocky Mountain Equity, and a few more there. And with that, I'm going to turn it right over to the chief to share some insight from the city's perspective.
So this has made a little bit of progress. It started out with a lot less in the hours, but the hours are still problematic. A lot of these things that we use, a lot of the websites, a lot of the time of things we're going for as far as the softwares we're going into, really they're data mining. When we're dealing with crimes, and especially even after 72 hours, you know, we might deal with the first name and he lives down in Pueblo or something, and that's where you start data mining. I don't understand how we're going to be able to, when the law requires we have to have probable cause to submit for a warrant, how we're going to be able to even get warrants after the 72-hour period with just kind of a lot of vague information. It'll also slow down the investigative process if we do have to do all the administrative paperwork, the warrants. It still just has a lot of roadblocks to it that will actually impede investigations.
I guess, Mayor Pro Tem, in the interest of time, I'd like to just cover the next 2 really quickly because they're all kind of the same public safety related. So, Peggy, you want to talk really quickly about 71?
You bet. 71 establishes the Surveillance Accountability and Freedom Insured Act, which regulates law enforcement agencies' use of surveillance technologies such as facial recognition, automatic license plate reader, traffic cameras, drones, And it limits data retention periods, mandating accountability measures and transparency. Again, similar opposition, CML, DA, State Patrol, Pueblo, Longmont, Castle Rock, Greeley, Lone Tree, Associated Governments of Northwest Colorado, Weld County Security Industry Association, Colorado Springs Retail Council. Supporters include Institute for Justice, ACLU, Common Cause, and the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition. I will say I don't think this bill is going to move forward in its current state. It is still sitting in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and seems to be sitting there to keep its title alive in case something happens with Senate Bill 70. And I'll let the chief talk again about how it impacts the city.
And this one has basically eliminates, kind of the live monitoring thing, exploratory searches, slows down investigations. A lot of that data sharing, we work with we will be working with 4 different task force right now. We're with 3 different task force, but sharing with DEA, ATF, or FBI, that information won't be able to go back and forth. Again, when we're looking at like a homicide, probably by the time we get to some of these leads and stuff, that data will be gone because of the retention periods that's put into this. So this has equally, if not more, roadblocks than even 70 did when it comes to that real-time surveillance and using some of those, the technology in which we do to, solve cases, basically.
House, oh, sorry.
Yep, go ahead. You were going there.
Okay, perfect. House Bill 1037, ban government purchase of personal data from third party. This bill was laid over in House Judiciary Committee. It prohibits law enforcement and other government entities from purchasing or obtaining personal data from third party in exchange for anything of value, with certain exceptions. The bill was going to get amended in Judiciary. They decided to lay it over. Interesting group of supporters on this one. You've got the Interfaith Alliance, the Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, ACLU, Institute for Justice, Common Cause, Cobalt, Colorado Criminal Defense Bar. Opposition includes CML, DAs, fire chiefs, kind of some of those same folks that we talked about in the other bills. Cities are Denver, Brighton, Greeley, Lone Tree, Oak Creek Fire Protection, Firestone, Colorado Springs, Monument, Parker, Northwest Colorado governments, Douglas County, Mesa, Weld, El Paso Lake, and Colorado Retail Council. So several other folks there.
And with this bill, basically the most impacted we looked at, I kind of broke them down. We would, some of the most impacted crimes in which we investigate that this would have a major impact on are our digital forensics investigations, narcotics and organized crime, human trafficking, property crime rings, violent crimes with no initial suspects. Intelligent-driven policing units would, anything we do proactive, this has a huge impact on using any of those databases and actually able to start drilling down. As I mentioned before, you get a shooting at a particular, let's say it's a house party and there's a shooting, you're typically only getting the first name. They might live over in Arvada and they might drive a black Kia, and that's all we have. And so for weeks, you're really data mining a lot of these different websites and these different third-party datas in order to start developing those leads, and it would have a major impact, and some of that information just wouldn't even be available to us.
So those are the 3 public safety bills that we've been tracking. Peggy, please correct me if I misstate here. 1037 and 1071 at this point, we don't think have a lot of momentum behind them at this point. Now that could change, but at this point, don't think there's a lot of energy behind them. So those that right now you haven't taken a position on those, obviously you can if you want. 70, you took an amend position. There have been some amendments moving in, we think the right direction, probably still not from a staff standpoint, what we'd like to see for using the tools, and not really sure if even that one's going to make it over the finish line. So happy to answer any questions, or if council wants to revise or take a different position on any of these, we'll take your direction.
Councilwoman Morris?
Thanks for the update. I know we have just a few minutes, so probably this could turn into a really long discussion, based on the information input. I mean, I would want to see our city take an opposition, position, opposed position to all three of these, but of course, we have 5 minutes to discuss that, so maybe do we have time in the next meeting to talk about it in more detail?
So we generally would not necessarily add a discussion item to the consent agenda. Now, we have in some cases reconvene the planning session once your formal meeting was over. So if that was your wish, we could do that. We certainly wouldn't have Peggy O'Keefe, we wouldn't have her hang on. But if there was interest in the council reconvening this meeting after the council, the formal council meeting, we have done that in other cases.
Got it.
Would anybody like to reconvene, or could we add this to the planning session? Because we're gonna have more updates next week.
You don't
correct?
have a
Or
planning session
Not for a
next
while,
week.
yeah, because we have NLC.
2
Okay.
weeks.
That's right, so the next meeting would be the,
Maybe your update in 2 weeks.
we could do it then.
Yeah, we
At the end of the discussion, then we'll also probably see some changes
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and get more of a final stage of where we're at, so I would
Yep.
say. do
Yep.
So keep
I
the
agree.
status that we're at now, and then we can revisit this in the next
Yep.
planning session.
Yep.
Okay,
I agree with that. And apologies, there were other bills that you had requested. We could send out, this was a last minute presentation. We could send that out. The eviction one was one. There were 2 data center ones that were on there.
I'd like to ask that we talk about that one real quick because that one's coming up. It's 11:06, so and it will take me all of a minute. Is it an introduction or just want me to?
Do you want to talk about it, or we were prepared to present on it, so.
Why don't you just do your quick presentation
Okay.
and then I'm gonna just express to everybody real quick.
So this 1106 would provide eviction protections for tenants. From our review, there's limited city impact. We don't get involved with evictions. You can read the update on the bill. It would provide additional protections for tenants, particularly vulnerable tenants. So that's kind of the proponent side of it. The opponents, if you're a landlord, you're trying to take a tenant potentially through an already lengthy eviction process, that this potentially could add time, money, effort to execute an eviction is kind of our assessment of it. So not really a city impact for us.
Not a city impact, but Drew and I have been working with this. We've been meeting with some other individuals, Colorado Association of Realtors. I've been talking to other cities as well. Parker has taken a position of oppose on it as well. The big issue is that it takes what is somewhat already a lengthy process and it can push it out months. If they put limits on how many cases can be heard a day and you start getting a backlog, it's detrimental. I personally, everyone knows I have 2 rental properties. I've had 2-3 months periods where rents aren't paid. That is a huge impact on us. I talked to the Mullicas. They have, a few properties too. It is a huge burden for individuals to carry these properties, and with what they've proposed can create extensions up to months and basically force us to sell our properties because we financially just can't carry it. And we're going to reduce the amount of rentable properties. I do beautiful flips and all my rental properties are very high end. I assure you, I'm not a slumlord, but this one is just going absolutely too far with the length and time and what it takes to move through there. There is a piece of the bill in which I do support, and that's removing minors' names from it because I don't think they need to be drug into the legal proceedings and their privacy should be protected. But when you look at this and its extent, it was supposed to go to committee today. It did get pushed back, and it's understanding that it's getting so much pushback from around the state that it's coming back in 2 weeks. But we will not have an opportunity to take a position on that. So I would like to ask council's consensus for an oppose. I've been working very hard on this one, talking with many individuals, and it's too far. If they can amend it down to protecting the minors' rights and privacy, all for that. There's various other pieces, and I know we're out of time. I'd like to talk more on it, but that is something that I would like to ask the council's consensus on as an opposed position, because I'm now getting other cities to also move to that opposed position too. It needs to be amended or opposed and brought back next year without the extraneous.
A long time frame, you mean?
Right.
does anybody else have any thoughts on it?
Many, but for the interest of time,
Yeah.
I agree with Chris ultimately.
Okay, I would have to see other organizations that are either supporting or opposing it. that's where I
think-
stand on it, so I
Okay.
wouldn't want to take a stance on it right now.
Mayor, do you want to, I do have those for you. Do you want me to read them real quick for you?
Yeah, if you could read them really quick,
You
that would be
bet.
great.
You bet. Support, we have Colorado Poverty Law Project, Colorado Children's Campaign, Women's Foundation. Opposition, Housing Colorado, the Bankers Association, Dominium, Rocky Mountain Home Association, Colorado Apartment Association, Colorado Springs Chamber of Commerce, NAOP Realtors, Colorado Children's Campaign, Mortgage Lenders, Leading Age Colorado, Colorado Concern, Coloradans for Housing Access, and to the councilman's point, apparently Parker, though I did not see him on the list, so I'll remind them to register. That's who we have so.
Do we have consensus now to take an oppose or support or amend type stance on this?
I would say I would join you guys and say we could oppose.
What was that? Oppose?
I'll just trust those two, say oppose on this.
Okay, so we have consensus to take an oppose stance.
I would join in and say opposed.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, thank you all.
You can bring back.